I'm Heather Michaud, 34, and a single mom to twin girls. Our family has this tradition of Sunday dinners at my parents' house. My sister Amanda brings her 3 kids, and I bring my twins. Tonight was supposed to be like any other family dinner, but it turned into something that exposed years of family dynamics and favoritism. It all started when we decided to order takeout, and I watched as everyone fawned over my sister's kids' preferences while my twins sat there, invisible, waiting for their turn to speak. Before I dive into what happened tonight, let me know where you're watching from. Hit that like and subscribe button if you've ever felt invisible in your own family. To understand what happened tonight, you need to know a bit about my family. My parents, Richard and Diane, both in their early 60s, have hosted Sunday family dinners for as long as I can remember. Their house is a spacious colonial in a quiet suburb, with a dining room specifically designed for family gatherings. The walls are lined with family photos, though I've noticed over the years that Amanda's family seems to occupy more frame space than mine. Amanda is my older sister by 4 years. At 38, she's married to Greg, 40, a successful financial advisor. They have 3 children, Zoe, who's 12 and already acts like she's 20, Ethan, a rambunctious 9-year-old, and Max, the 6-year-old baby of the family who gets away with absolutely everything. My twins, Riley and Lily, are 8. They're thoughtful, quiet girls who love reading and art. Growing up, Amanda was always the golden child. She was outgoing, popular, and excelled at everything she tried: sports, academics, you name it. I was the quieter one, more responsible in many ways, but somehow less visible. I worked just as hard in school, participated in plenty of activities, but my achievements always seemed to pale in comparison to Amanda's. This dynamic didn't change when we became adults. Amanda married her college sweetheart in a lavish wedding that my parents talked about for years. I'm married too, but my relationship ended in divorce when the twins were just 3. I think my parents see Amanda as the successful daughter who did everything right, while I'm the one who couldn't even keep my marriage together. The favoritism extends to our children as well. My parents adore all their grandchildren, but there's a clear hierarchy. Amanda's kids are louder and more demanding. They know exactly how to capture my parents' attention. Zoe is constantly showing off her latest dance moves or soccer achievements. Ethan dominates conversations with detailed accounts of his video games. Max has mastered the art of being cute on command. Meanwhile, my twins are more reserved. They observe before they participate. They're polite and wait their turn to speak, qualities I've tried to instill in them, but sometimes I wonder if I've done them a disservice in this family. Their cousins always seem to get first pick of toys, first servings of dessert, and the most enthusiastic reactions to their school story. My parents consistently cater to Amanda's family's preferences. If Ethan doesn't like the dinner that's prepared, my mom will make him something else. If Zoe wants to watch a particular movie, the TV is immediately switched over. When Max had a phase of only eating dinosaur-shaped food, my mom actually bought dinosaur cookie cutters to accommodate him. I've tried to stand up for my girls in subtle ways. When Riley mentioned she didn't like the new seating arrangement that had her at the far end of the table away from everyone else, I suggested rotating seats each week. My suggestion was quickly dismissed because the kids are comfortable where they are. The kids, in this case, meaning Amanda's kids. Last Christmas was particularly telling. Zoe received an expensive tablet, Ethan got the gaming system he wanted, and Max received a ridiculously large toy car he could actually ride in. My twins each got a board game and some clothes. The disparity was so obvious that even Greg, Amanda's husband, looked uncomfortable. When I gently brought it up later, my mother insisted that the gifts were age-appropriate, and that my girls aren't into expensive gadgets anyway. She had never asked them what they were into. For Riley's and Lily's birthday last month, my parents gave them each a $25 gift card. 2 weeks later, for Ethan's birthday, they gave him a new bike. When I mentioned that the twins' old bikes were getting too small, my dad said, maybe for Christmas, even though their birthday and Christmas are 6 months apart. I've tried to compensate for this disparity without spoiling my girls. I want them to understand that love isn't measured in gifts or attention, but I also don't want them to feel less valued than their cousins. It's a difficult balance, especially when they come home from these family gatherings and quietly ask questions that break my heart. Why does Grandma always ask Zoe about her day first? Or how come Grandpa took the boys fishing but said we wouldn't like it? I've brought up these concerns with my parents before, but they always dismiss them. You're too sensitive, my mother says. We love all our grandchildren equally. My father usually stays out of it entirely, retreating to his study when conversations get uncomfortable. Amanda, of course, either doesn't notice the favoritism or pretends not to. After all, it benefits her and her children. Despite all this, I've tried to maintain these family connections. I want my girls to have a relationship with their grandparents and cousins. But each Sunday dinner has become increasingly difficult to get through, watching my children fade into the background while their cousins shine in the spotlight of my parents' attention. Tonight, though, something in me finally snapped. Today started like any typical Sunday. The twins and I woke up early to bake cookies for dessert, a lemon sugar cookie recipe that my mom had once mentioned liking. The girls had also spent Saturday afternoon making special drawings for their grandparents. Riley had created an intricate garden scene with her colored pencils, while Lily had painted a family portrait in watercolors. They were genuinely excited to give these gifts, carefully placing them in folders to keep them pristine. We arrived at my parents' house at 4:00 p.m., a half before the official start time. I always come early to help set up, a habit from childhood when I was the responsible daughter. My mother was in the kitchen, fussing over a roast that didn't seem to be cooking as quickly as she'd expected. "Hi, Mom," I said, hanging up our light jackets in the hall closet. "Need any help?" "Oh, Heather, yes, can you set the table? I'm running behind today." She barely looked up from the oven. "This new recipe isn't cooperating." The twins approached her cautiously, folders in hand. "Grandma, we made you something," Lily said, her voice soft but hopeful. "That's nice, dear, just put it on the counter for now. I need to focus on this roast." I watched their faces fall slightly but gave them an encouraging smile. "Why don't you put your gifts on the coffee table in the living room? Grandma can look at them properly after dinner." They nodded and carefully placed their artwork on the coffee table, arranging and rearranging them for the best presentation. My father walked in from his study, glancing at the girl. "Hello, you two," he said, patting each on the head briefly before turning to me. "Heather, do you know what time Amanda and Greg are getting here? Your mother's concerned about the timing of dinner." "They said they'd be here at 4:30, same as always," I replied, already pulling out plates from the cabinet. I didn't mention that Amanda and her family rarely arrived on time, usually strolling in 15 to 20 minutes late with no apology. Sure enough, at 4:50 p.m., the front door burst open with the chaotic energy that always accompanied Amanda's family. Zoe entered first, already talking loudly about some drama with her friends at school. Ethan rushed in next, immediately asking if he could use Grandpa's iPad. Max bounded in with a toy airplane, making zooming noises at a volume that instantly filled the house. "We're here," Amanda announced unnecessarily, giving our mother a hug as Greg followed behind, carrying a store-bought pie. The change in my parents was immediate and dramatic. My mother's stressed expression transformed into a beaming smile. She wiped her hands on her apron and embraced each of Amanda's children with enthusiasm. "Zoe, look how tall you're getting. Is that a new hairstyle? It's gorgeous," she gushed. "Ethan, I loaded that game you like on the iPad. It's on the side table. And Max, come give Grandma a proper hug, my little man." My father emerged from wherever he'd disappeared to, arms open wide. "There's my sports star," he said to Ethan. "How was the soccer game yesterday?" "We won 4-2, I scored twice," Ethan announced proudly. "That's my boy." My father high-fived him, then turned to Zoe. "And how's my favorite dancer doing? Still practicing for that recital?" The twins stood quietly by the dining room entrance, watching this effusive greeting. I placed a hand on each of their shoulders, giving a gentle squeeze of solidarity. They hadn't received anything close to this enthusiastic welcome, despite arriving earlier and bringing handmade gifts. "Girls, why don't you go say hello to your cousins?" I suggested, trying to include them in the family buzz. They nodded and approached the group, but were largely ignored as Amanda launched into a story about their hectic morning and how traffic had been absolutely insane on the way over. I finished setting the table while listening to the animated conversations in the living room. The twins had given up trying to join in and were sitting on the smaller sofa, looking through a picture book they'd found on the shelf. "Dinner's going to be a bit delayed," my mother announced. "The roast needs at least another 45 minutes. Richard, why don't you pour everyone some drinks?" Amanda flopped onto the main couch dramatically. I'm starving, the kids are too. We rushed out without much lunch because Max had his t-ball practice. My mother immediately looked concerned. Oh, you poor things, I have some cheese and crackers I can put out. Did anyone notice the artwork the twins made? I asked, gesturing to the carefully placed drawings on the coffee table. They worked really hard on them yesterday. There was a brief pause as everyone glanced at the folders. Oh, how nice, my mother said quickly before turning back to Amanda. Did you say Max hit the ball at practice today? That's wonderful progress. And just like that, the moment was gone. My father distributed drinks, special fruit punch concoctions for Amanda's kids, basic apple juice for the twins, and the conversation continued as if I hadn't spoken. The twins exchanged a look I recognized all too well, one that said they weren't surprised but were still disappointed. As my mother laid out an elaborate pre-dinner snack tray, I noticed she placed it on the coffee table near Amanda's family, far from where my girls were sitting. I quietly took a small plate, filled it with cheese and crackers, and brought it over to Riley and Lily. Here you go, loves, I said, trying to keep my voice light. They thanked me with small smiles that didn't reach their eyes. The next 30 minutes consisted of everyone listening to Amanda's detailed account of her week, from a minor disagreement with a neighbor to the complexities of planning Zoe's upcoming birthday party. Whenever I tried to contribute to the conversation or mention something about the twins' week, Amanda would either talk over me or quickly redirect the conversation back to her family after a cursory, "Oh, that's nice." I watched my daughters retreating further into themselves, becoming almost invisible in the room full of family. Riley had stopped trying to share her news about winning the spelling bee at school. Lily hadn't even mentioned being selected to have her artwork displayed in the school hallway. Achievements that would have generated whoops and high fives had they been accomplished by their cousin. When my mother returned from checking the roast again, her expression was frustrated. It's still not cooking properly. I don't understand what's wrong with this recipe. Why don't we just order takeout? My father suggested. It's getting late, and the kids are hungry. That's a great idea, Amanda agreed immediately. The new Chinese place has amazing reviews. Or we could do pizza. The kids love pizza. My mother looked relieved at the suggestion. Takeout sounds perfect. What does everyone want? And that's when it happened, the moment that finally made me snap. I want sweet and chicken, Max yelled immediately, bouncing on the couch. Beef and broccoli for me, Ethan added, not looking up from the iPad. Do they have sushi? I'm on a health kick, Zoe said with the worldly air that only a 12-year-old can muster. My father had already pulled out his phone and opened the restaurant's menu. Yes, they have a sushi selection, Zoe. Which ones do you like? California roll, but no avocado, and maybe a spicy tuna if they use real tuna, not the fake stuff. My mother had grabbed a notepad and was writing down each order with careful attention. Max wants sweet and chicken, Ethan wants beef and broccoli. Zoe wants California roll, no avocado, and spicy tuna if it's real tuna. I'll have General Tso's chicken, Amanda chimed in. Greg, what about you? Kung Pao beef sounds good to me, Greg replied. My mother dutifully added their choices to the list. Richard, your usual Mongolian beef. My father nodded, and wonton soup to start. And I'll have the shrimp with mixed vegetables, my mother said, writing down her own order. Then, without even a pause or glance toward my side of the room, she asked, Is that everything? I waited a moment, stunned. Riley and Lily were sitting quietly, waiting for their turn to be asked. They looked at me questioningly, wondering if they'd somehow missed their cue to speak. Mom, I said, trying to keep my voice level, you haven't asked what the girls want. There was an awkward pause as my mother looked up, blinking as if she'd genuinely forgotten about my daughters. Oh, right. What would you like, girls? Before either twin could answer, Amanda waved her hand dismissively. They'll eat whatever, right? Kids that age aren't picky. We could just get some plain fried rice for them, my mother suggested, already turning back to her list. Mom, I interrupted, more firmly this time. Riley and Lily have preferences too. They're 8, not 2. They can choose their own food. There's no need to get upset, Heather, my mother said with a hint of impatience. I was just trying to simplify the order. By asking every single person except my children, the words came out sharper than I intended, but years of frustration were bubbling to the surface. The room fell uncomfortably silent. The twins looked mortified at being the center of attention, but I refused to back down. This was about more than just takeout. Girls, I said, turning to my daughters with a gentle smile, what would you like for dinner? Riley spoke first, her voice so soft I had to lean in to hear her. Could I have lo mein with vegetables, please? And I'd like the honey walnut shrimp, Lily added, a bit more confident. Lo mein with vegetables for Riley and honey walnut shrimp for Lily, I repeated loudly, looking directly at my mother. Should I write those down for you, or do you have them? My mother's lips thinned as she added their orders to the list. I've got it, she said tersely. The silence that followed was deafening. Amanda was giving me a look that clearly said I was overreacting. My father had suddenly become very interested in the takeout menu. Greg, to his credit, looked somewhat uncomfortable with the situation. I'll call it in, my father finally said, taking the list from my mother and retreating to the kitchen. As he left, I caught sight of my daughters' faces. They weren't triumphant or pleased, they looked anxious and unsure, as if they'd done something wrong by simply stating their preferences. But underneath that anxiety, I saw something else in Riley's eyes, a small glimmer of appreciation that someone had stood up for them. In that moment, I realized how often this scene had played out in various forms throughout their young lives. How many times had they been overlooked, their voices drowned out by their louder cousins? How many times had their needs been considered less important, less worthy of attention? How many times had I noticed but said nothing, not wanting to create tension or be labeled as too sensitive? Too many times, far too many times. And looking at my beautiful, thoughtful daughters sitting there still trying to make themselves smaller to avoid causing any more disruption, I knew that something had to change. I couldn't keep allowing them or myself to be treated as afterthoughts in our own family. The takeout incident wasn't just about food. It was about respect, about acknowledging that my children mattered just as much as their cousins. It was about breaking a pattern that had been established long before the twins were even born. My heart was pounding, and I could feel a flush creeping up my neck, but I didn't regret speaking up. This small stand felt like the first step towards something important not just for me, but for Riley and Lily. Who wants to play a game while we wait for the food? Amanda asked brightly, clearly trying to move past the awkward moment. But something had shifted, and I knew we couldn't just go back to pretending everything was fine. The 30 minutes we spent waiting for the food delivery were excruciating. Amanda kept up a stream of forced cheerfulness, my mother busied herself with unnecessary kitchen preparations, and my father remained conspicuously absent, having elected to wait outside for the delivery driver in case they had trouble finding the house. The twins had retreated further into their shells, now sitting so close together on the sofa that they were practically one person. Zoe was dramatically texting someone on her phone, sighing loudly every few minutes. Ethan remained glued to the iPad, while Max zoomed his toy airplane dangerously close to a vase my mother had always been particularly protective of. Careful, Max, I said when no one else seemed inclined to address his behavior. That vase looks expensive. He's just playing, Amanda said with a tight smile. Boys will be boys. And broken vases will be broken vases, I replied evenly. Amanda's smile faltered. You know, Heather, not everything has to be so dramatic. You're really making a mountain out of a molehill tonight. I felt my jaw clench. Am I? Because from where I'm sitting, I just wanted my daughters to be asked what they wanted for dinner. That doesn't seem particularly dramatic to me. It's the way you did it, she hissed, lowering her voice although everyone could clearly still hear. You made Mom feel terrible over something so small. It's not small to them, I nodded toward my daughters. And it's not just about tonight. Maybe this isn't the time or place, Greg interjected, looking uncomfortable. When is the time or place? I asked, suddenly tired of keeping the peace. Because I've tried to bring this up privately multiple times and nothing changes. My mother returned from the kitchen, her face a mask of forced pleasantness. Let's all just take a breath, shall we? The food will be here soon, and then we can enjoy a nice family dinner. After a nice family conversation, I added, no longer willing to let this go. The tension in the room was suffocating. I could see the twins exchanging worried glances, and suddenly I didn't want them to witness whatever was about to unfold. Girls, I said gently, why don't you go outside for a few minutes? Get some fresh air while we wait for the food. They nodded gratefully and quickly exited through the patio doors to the backyard. I followed them out, needing a moment to collect my thoughts as well. The evening air was cool and calming. The twins wandered over to the old swing set that had been in the yard since Amanda and I were children. They sat on the swings but didn't pump their legs, just gently rocked back and forth. I knelt in front of them. Are you two okay? They exchanged one of those twin looks that seemed to contain an entire conversation. We're fine, Mom, Riley answered, but her eyes told a different story. You can be honest with me, I encourage. How did that make you feel in there? Lily shrugged, studying the ground. Normal, I guess. Normal, the word hit me like a punch to the gut. Yeah, Riley agreed. Grandma and Grandpa always ask Zoe and Ethan and Max first, about everything. We're used to it. Do you remember my art show at school? Lily asked suddenly. The one Grandma and Grandpa said they couldn't come to because they had a dinner reservation. I nodded, already seeing where this was going. They went to Ethan's soccer game the next day. I saw the pictures on Aunt Amanda's Facebook. And remember when I won the spelling bee, Riley added, her voice growing stronger. I called to tell Grandpa, and he said he'd call back because he was teaching Max how to ride his bike. He never called back. Each example was like a knife twisting in my heart. Not because these were new revelations, but because I'd noticed these incidents too and had done nothing substantial to address them. I'd made excuses, tried to compensate with my own attention, but I'd never truly confronted the pattern head-on. I don't want to go to Sunday dinners anymore, Lily said quietly, voicing the thought that clearly had been building in both of them. Me neither, Riley agreed. I'd rather just have dinner with you at home. I took a deep breath, fighting back tears. I understand how you feel, and I want you to know that what happened in there wasn't okay. You both deserve to be seen and heard just as much as your cousins. It's okay, Mom, Riley said with a maturity that broke my heart. We know you love us. I do love you, more than anything. And that's why it's not okay. It's not okay that you've been made to feel less important or less interesting or less worthy of attention. Because you're not. You're amazing, both of you. I stood up, my resolve strengthening. We're going to go back inside, and we're going to have a conversation that's been a long time coming. You don't have to say anything if you don't want to. But I need you to know that I see what's happening, and I'm not going to let it continue. They nodded solemnly, and we walked back to the house together, my hands gently resting on their shoulders. Inside, the food had arrived. My father was distributing containers while my mother arranged plates and utensils. Amanda was helping Max open his sweet and sour chicken, while Zoe inspected her sushi with a critical eye. Everything okay? My mother asked with forced brightness as we entered. Actually no, I said calmly. Everything is not okay and I think we need to talk about it. Can't this wait until after dinner? Amanda asked with an exasperated sigh. The food's getting cold. No, it can't wait. Because this isn't just about tonight. This is about a pattern that's been going on for years. My father looked up alarmed. What pattern? The pattern of my children being treated as less important than their cousins. The pattern of their achievements being ignored while Zoe, Ethan, and Max are praised for every little thing. The pattern of them being overlooked, time and time again, in their own family. That's ridiculous, Amanda snapped. You're being paranoid. Am I? Mom, when was the last time you asked Riley about her day before asking Zoe? Dad, when was the last time you took the twins fishing or to a baseball game like you do with Ethan? When was the last time either of you made a special meal because Lily requested it, the way you do whenever Max decides he only eats foods that are a certain color? My parents exchanged uncomfortable glances. We love all our grandchildren, my mother said defensively. I believe you do, but you don't treat them equally. Not even close. So we're bad grandparents now, my father's voice rose, after everything we've done for you and the girls. I'm not saying you're bad grandparents. I'm saying you play favorites, and it's hurting my daughters. This is so typical of you, Heather, Amanda interjected. Always the victim. I turned to her, feeling a surge of anger. This isn't about me being a victim. This is about my children being treated like they matter less than yours. And frankly, your inability to see it or admit it is part of the problem. Oh please, is this because my kids are more outgoing, because they actually speak up when they want something instead of sitting there silently? They sit there silently because every time they try to speak, they get talked over or ignored. Maybe if you hadn't raised them to be so painfully shy. They're not shy, they're considerate. They've been taught to wait their turn and consider others, which is apparently more than can be said for. Enough, my father's voice boomed across the room. Both of you stop it right now. You're acting like children. No, Dad, I said, turning to him. We're not acting like children. We're acting like parents. I'm standing up for my children, which is exactly what I should be doing. By insulting your sister's parenting, by attacking your mother and me. I'm not attacking anyone. I'm pointing out a problematic pattern that needs to change. Maybe the problem is that you're still bitter about your divorce, Amanda said, hitting below the belt. Maybe you're projecting your insecurities onto your kids. The room fell silent. Even Amanda seemed to realize she'd crossed a line. I looked at my daughters, who were watching the scene with wide, uncomfortable eyes. They didn't deserve to witness this ugliness. None of the children did. We're leaving, I said quietly, gathering my purse. Girls, get your jackets. Heather, don't be ridiculous, my mother protested. The food just got here. I've lost my appetite. I helped the twins into their jackets, noting that no one tried very hard to stop us. I think we all need some time to cool off and reflect. So you're just going to storm out? Very mature, Amanda called after me. I paused at the door, turning back to face my family. What's not mature is continuing to pretend there isn't a problem when there clearly is. What's not mature is dismissing valid concerns because they make you uncomfortable. What's not mature is teaching children that some of them matter more than others. With that, I ushered the twins out the door and to our car, my hands shaking as I fumbled with the keys. As we drove away, I glanced in the rearview mirror at my daughters. They weren't crying or upset, they looked almost relieved. And that, perhaps, was the most heartbreaking part of all. The drive home was quiet. I could feel the twins watching me in the rearview mirror, their expressions a mix of concern and something else, maybe relief, maybe worry, maybe both. My hands were still shaking slightly on the steering wheel, adrenaline coursing through my system. Are you mad, Mom? Lily finally asked in a small voice. I took a deep breath, composing myself before answering. Not at you, sweetheart. Never at you. Are Grandma and Grandpa mad at us? Riley's question pierced my heart. No, honey, they're probably upset with me, not you. You didn't do anything wrong. We didn't mean to cause trouble, Lily said, her voice wavering. I pulled into a small park near our house instead of going straight home. Turning in my seat to face them, I looked at my beautiful, thoughtful daughters who were somehow blaming themselves for the adults' behavior. Listen to me, both of you. You did not cause any trouble. You exist, you have feelings and preferences and achievements that deserve to be acknowledged. Never, ever think that asking to be seen and heard is causing trouble. They nodded, but I could tell they weren't entirely convinced. Let's go sit on the swings for a bit, I suggested. I could use some fresh air. The park was empty in the early evening light. The twins headed for the swings while I sat on a nearby bench, watching them pump their legs in perfect synchronicity. Their mashing blonde ponytails swung back and forth as they gained height, their earlier discomfort seemingly forgotten in the simple joy of swinging. I pulled out my phone to find a text from my mother. I don't understand why you had to make such a scene. The girls' food is in the refrigerator if you want to come back and get it. No apology. No acknowledgement of the underlying issues, just concern about the abandoned takeout. Another text popped up, this one from Amanda. Way to ruin dinner. The kids are upset now, hope you're happy. I slipped the phone back into my pocket without responding. Any reply I made now would be fueled by hurt and anger, and that wouldn't help anyone. When we finally got home, I made the girls grilled cheese sandwiches, their favorite comfort food, and we ate them while watching a movie, all of us cuddled together on the couch. Neither twin mentioned the disaster at dinner, but they stayed unusually close to me all evening, as if seeking reassurance. After tucking them into bed, I sat alone in the kitchen with a cup of tea, replaying the evening's events in my mind. Had I overreacted? Should I have addressed the issue differently, more privately? Was I making mountains out of molehills, as Amanda had suggested? No. The hurt in my daughter's eyes when they told me they were used to being overlooked confirmed what I'd known for a long time. This wasn't about one takeout order. This was about years of subtle messages that they were somehow less deserving of attention, affection, and consideration than their cousin. My phone buzzed again, a text from my father. Your mother is very upset. I think you owe her an apology. I typed back. I think we all need to have a real conversation about how the twins are treated in this family. I'm not apologizing for standing up for my children. He didn't respond. Sleep eluded me that night. I tossed and turned, alternating between righteous anger and nagging guilt. What would this mean for our family dynamic going forward? Would my parents reflect on their behavior, or would they simply label me as oversensitive and difficult? Would the twins lose their relationship with their grandparents because I'd finally spoken up? Around 3 a.m., I heard soft footsteps in the hallway. The bedroom door creaked open, and Riley peeked in. "Can't sleep?" I asked, lifting the covers in invitation. She nodded and climbed in beside me. "Lily's coming too," she whispered, and sure enough, her sister appeared seconds later, slipping under the covers on my other side. "Bad dreams?" I asked, stroking Riley's hair. "Not really," she replied. "Just thinking about what happened at Grandma and Grandpa's," Lily added from my other side. I sighed. "I'm sorry you had to see all that. Adults shouldn't argue in front of children." "It's okay," Riley said. "We're glad you stood up for us. But we're worried about Grandma and Grandpa being mad," Lily continued, completing her sister's thought as they often did. "They love you," I assured them. "They might be upset right now, but they love you very much." "Do we have to go back next Sunday?" Riley asked hesitantly. I considered my answer carefully. "I think we might take a little break from Sunday dinners, just until things cool down a bit." They were quiet for a moment, and I could almost hear them thinking. "Is it bad that I'm kind of relieved?" Lily finally whispered. "Me too," Riley admitted. "I get nervous at Grandma and Grandpa's house, like I'm doing everything wrong." Their confession broke my heart and strengthened my resolve at the same time. "You don't do anything wrong. You're perfect just as you are, thoughtful and kind and considerate. Those are wonderful qualities, even if they sometimes get overlooked in the chaos." They snuggled closer, and eventually their breathing deepened into sleep. I remained awake, holding my daughters and promising myself that I would never again stay silent when they were being diminished, no matter how uncomfortable the confrontation might be. Morning brought no texts or calls from my family, but my friend Rachel reached out. "Coffee today. Need to vent about my boss." Rachel had been my rock through the divorce and understood the complicated dynamics with my family. At the cafe, after listening to her workplace woes, I found myself pouring out the whole story of the previous night. "Good for you," she said when I finished, reaching across the table to squeeze my hand. "It's about time someone called them out on this. Amanda thinks I'm just bitter and projecting." Amanda has been the golden child her whole life. Of course she doesn't see it. My parents seem more upset about the scene I caused than the actual issue. Rachel nodded knowingly. Classic. It's easier to blame the person pointing out the problem than to acknowledge the problem itself. "I don't know where we go from here," I admitted. "Part of me wants to just avoid Sunday dinners indefinitely, but that feels like punishing my parents by withholding their grandchildren. And the girls shouldn't lose their relationship with their grandparents because the adults can't figure things out." "Maybe this was the wake-up call your parents needed," Rachel suggested. "Give it a week, let everyone cool off. Then try talking to your parents alone, without Amanda or the kids around." Her advice made sense, but I wasn't optimistic. The pattern was so deeply entrenched that I doubted one dramatic dinner could change it. The week passed with minimal contact from my family. My mother sent a few generic pictures of flowers and landscapes, her passive-aggressive way of reaching out without actually addressing the issue. Amanda remained radio silent. I focused on work and the twins, trying not to obsess over the fallout. On Thursday evening, my phone rang. My father's name appeared on the screen, surprising me. He rarely called, preferring to let my mother handle family communication. "Hello," I answered cautiously. "Heather," his voice sounded tired. "How are you?" "I'm fine, Dad, how are you?" "Been better," he cleared his throat. "Listen, your mother doesn't know I'm calling, but I've been thinking about what you said Sunday night." I held my breath, not wanting to interrupt whatever unexpected reflection he was about to share. "I watched some old videos yesterday, birthday parties, Christmases, that sort of thing, and I noticed something." He paused. "You might have a point about how we treat the kids differently." It was the last thing I expected him to say. "Really?" In almost every video, Amanda's kids are front and center. The twins are always in the background, waiting their turn. And that turn often doesn't come. His voice cracked slightly. I never noticed before, but seeing it all together like that, it was hard to miss. "Dad," I didn't know what to say. "I'm not saying this excuses everything, but I want you to know that I'm listening, that I'm thinking about what you said." Another pause. "The girls okay?" "They're fine, they miss you." "I miss them too." He sounded genuinely sad. "Your mother and I were wondering if maybe we could take them for ice cream tomorrow after school, just the twins. No Amanda, no cousins. It was a small gesture, but it felt like the first acknowledgement that there might actually be a problem. I think they'd like that. I'll check with them and let you know. Good, that's good. He cleared his throat again. Well, I should go. Your mother will be back from her garden club soon. Dad, thank you for calling, it means a lot. After we hung up, I sat for a long time, processing the conversation. It wasn't a complete resolution, not by a long shot. But it was a start, the first tiny crack in the wall of denial that had surrounded this issue for years. Later that night, as I tucked the twins into bed, I mentioned my father's call and his invitation. Just us, Riley confirmed, her expression cautiously hopeful. Not with Zoe and Ethan and Max. Just you two, with Grandma and Grandpa. They exchanged one of their twin looks before Lily asked, will you come too? Not this time. I think Grandma and Grandpa want some special time with just you. Are they still mad about Sunday? Riley worried, her bottom lip between her teeth. I don't think so, sweetheart. I think they're trying to make things better. After thinking it over, they agreed to the ice cream date. It wasn't forgiveness or resolution, but it was a step forward, a small acknowledgement that something needed to change. As I closed their bedroom door, I felt the weight of the situation still heavy on my shoulders, but there was also a glimmer of hope that hadn't been there before. My father's phone call suggested that maybe, just maybe, they were beginning to see what I'd been trying to tell them for years. The road ahead would likely be bumpy, with more difficult conversations and potential setbacks. But for the first time, I believed there might actually be a road forward instead of the endless circle we'd been traveling. The twins' ice cream date with their grandparents went surprisingly well. They came home with chocolate-smeared smiles and stories about how Grandpa had let them each have 2 scoops with extra toppings. More importantly, they reported that both grandparents had asked them questions about school and listened to their answers without interrupting or changing the subject. Grandma asked about my art project, Lily told me excitedly. She even wrote down the date of the school art show in her phone calendar. And Grandpa said he wants to take us fishing next weekend, Riley added. Just us, not with Ethan. Their enthusiasm was both heartwarming and heartbreaking. Such simple gestures of interest and attention shouldn't feel so special to them. The following day, I called my parents and suggested we meet for coffee, just the 3 of us. We needed to have an adult conversation without the emotional complications of having the children present. We met at a quiet cafe downtown on Saturday morning. My mother looked tense, my father uncomfortable but determined. I'd rehearsed what I wanted to say, trying to find the balance between honesty and kindness. Thank you for taking the girls for ice cream, I began, keeping my tone warm. They had a wonderful time. They're such good kids, my father said, so polite and thoughtful. They are, I agreed, which is why it hurts to see them overlooked so often. My mother's lips thinned. Heather, we've been thinking a lot about what you said last Sunday. While I think your approach was unnecessarily dramatic. Mom, my father interjected with unusual firmness. We agreed to listen first. She pressed her lips together and nodded stiffly. I took a deep breath. I'm not here to attack you or make you feel bad. I love you both, and I know you love all your grandchildren. But there's a pattern in how the twins are treated compared to Amanda's kids, and it's been going on for years. We don't mean to play favorites, my father said quietly. I know you don't mean to, but intent doesn't change the impact. I pulled out my phone. I made a list of examples from just the past 3 months. I read through the list, the disparity in birthday gifts, the canceled plans with the twins while keeping commitments with their cousins, the way conversations were always directed to Amanda's children first, the different reactions to similar achievements. These might seem like small things individually, but together, they send a clear message to Riley and Lily that they're less important, less interesting, less worthy of attention than their cousin. My mother's eyes had filled with tears. We never wanted them to feel that way. I know. But they do. They've told me they get nervous at your house because they feel like they're doing everything wrong. They were relieved when I said we might take a break from Sunday dinners. 8-year-olds shouldn't feel relieved to avoid spending time with their grandparents. My father reached across the table and took my hand. We want to do better, Heather, tell us how. His directness surprised me. I'd expected more defensiveness, more excuses. It's really about awareness, I said. Notice who you talk to first, who gets asked about their day, whose preferences take priority. Make sure you're distributing your attention equally. Remember that the quiet child who's waiting patiently for her turn to speak deserves just as much of your time and interest as the loud one demanding attention. And what about Amanda? My mother asked. She's very protective of her children. She won't like if she feels they're getting less attention. This isn't about giving her children less, it's about giving mine equal. And frankly, that's a conversation you need to have with her. I've tried, but she doesn't see the problem. She wouldn't, my father muttered, then looked embarrassed at his own comment. We've always been careful not to play favorites with you and Amanda, my mother insisted. I raised an eyebrow but decided not to challenge that dubious claim. This wasn't about my childhood grievances, it was about my children. The important thing is moving forward, I said. I want the twins to have a good relationship with you. I want them to feel valued and loved in your home. But that means things need to change. We can change, my father promised. Just be patient with us, old habits and all that. And we'd like to see the girls this Sunday, my mother added. We miss them. I hesitated. I think we need a bit more time. Maybe we could start with something smaller like the fishing trip Dad mentioned to the girls. They were disappointed but agreed. We spent the next hour discussing specific changes they could make, from creating more one-on-one time with the twins to being more mindful of equity in gifts and attention. My father took notes on his phone, which touched me more than I could express. As we were leaving, my mother hugged me tightly. I'm sorry they felt invisible, she whispered. That was never what we wanted. I know, I said, hugging her back. That's why I believe we can fix this. Amanda was a different story. When my parents attempted to discuss the issue with her, she was predictably defensive. She called me immediately afterward. Congratulations, she said sarcastically. You've got Mom and Dad walking on eggshells now, afraid they're going to somehow traumatize your precious twins. That's not what this is about, Amanda. Isn't it? You've always been jealous that my kids have more personality than yours. I bit back my first angry response. My children have plenty of personality. They're just quieter, more observant, and that shouldn't mean they get less consideration. So my kids should be punished for being outgoing. No one is being punished. This is about equity, not punishment. Mom says they're planning separate activities with your girls now. How is that fair to my kids? Your children get plenty of one-on-one time with them already. This is about balance. The conversation went in circles, with Amanda unable or unwilling to see the pattern from any perspective but her own. Eventually, I had to end the call for my own sanity. She'll come around, my father assured me when I updated him on the conversation. Or she won't, but that doesn't change what we're trying to do here. True to their word, my parents took the twins fishing that weekend. They came home sunburned and excited, proudly showing me photos of the small fish they'd caught and released. My father had taught them to bait their own hooks and had listened patiently as Riley explained the entire plot of the book she was reading. 2 weeks later, we attempted a modified family dinner. Instead of the usual chaotic free-for-all, my mother implemented a new structure. The talking stick that gave each person at the table a turn to share something about their week while everyone else listened. It was awkward at first. Amanda rolled her eyes, and her children struggled with the concept of waiting their turn. Up by dessert, everyone had shared something, and for once, the twins hadn't been talked over or forgotten. I liked using the talking stick, Lily told me on the drive home. Grandma remembered to ask about my art show. And did you notice how she put our drawings on the refrigerator? Riley added. Right next to Zoe's soccer schedule. Small changes but meaningful ones. Over the next few months, we established a new normal. Sunday dinners resume, but with clearer expectations and boundaries. My parents made visible efforts to engage equally with all their grandchildren. They started a tradition of grandkid dates, where each child got a monthly outing alone with them, rotating through all 5 children. Amanda remained skeptical and occasionally hostile, making snide comments about her children being neglected now. But even she couldn't deny that the overall family dynamic had improved. There was less chaos, fewer interruptions, and more actual conversation at the dinner table. The real test came 3 months after the Takeout incident, when we gathered for Zoe's 13th birthday party. In the past, such events had centered entirely around Amanda's children, with the twins fading into the background. This time, while Zoe was appropriately the center of attention, I noticed my parents making deliberate efforts to include Riley and Lily in activities and conversation. At one point, Amanda pulled me aside. "You've got them wrapped around your finger now, don't you?" she said, but there was less venom in her voice than I expected. "That's not what this is about, Amanda. I just want all the cousins to feel equally valued." She watched as my father helped Lily set up a croquet mallet, showing the same patience he'd always shown her own children. "I still think you overreacted about the Takeout thing," she said finally. "But I guess I can see why the girls might have felt left out sometimes." It wasn't an apology or a full acknowledgement, but coming from Amanda, it was significant progress. "Your kids are great," I told her sincerely. "They're energetic and creative and fun. I want them to stay that way. I just want mine to have space to be themselves too." She nodded, a thoughtful expression replacing her usual defensiveness. "Zoe mentioned that Riley's been helping her with math. Apparently, your quiet daughter is actually pretty good at explaining things." "She is," I agreed, feeling a surge of pride. "She has a way of breaking problems down that makes them seem manageable." "Well, that's good. Zoe needs all the help she can get with algebra." It was a small moment, but it felt like a tiny crack in the wall between us, an acknowledgement that our children could have meaningful relationships with each other beyond the family power dynamics we'd created. As the party wound down, I watched the twins helping their younger cousin Max clean up wrapping paper, showing him how to fold it neatly for recycling. They weren't trying to fade into the background anymore. They were simply being themselves, thoughtful, helpful, and quietly confident. My mother approached, slipping an arm around my waist. "They're amazing girls, Heather. I'm sorry it took us so long to really see them." "They always were amazing," I said, "but thank you for making the effort to notice." "We're trying," she replied. "We don't always get it right, but we're trying." And really, that was all I had ever asked for. 3 months after Zoe's birthday party, we're still finding our way through this new family dynamic. It's not perfect, change never is, especially when it involves patterns established over decades. There are still moments when I catch my parents automatically gravitating toward Amanda's children, still times when the twins get overlooked in the chaos of family gatherings. But now, there's awareness. Parents catch themselves. They make corrections. They try. The biggest change I've seen is in Riley and Lily themselves. They stand taller now, speak with more confidence. They don't shrink into the background at family events, waiting to be noticed. They've learned that their voices matter, that they have the right to take up space. Last Sunday, Riley actually interrupted Ethan during dinner when he talked over her story about winning the school science fair. "I wasn't finished," she said firmly but politely. Everyone at the table paused, including Ethan, who looked surprised but then nodded and said, "Sorry, go ahead." I nearly cried into my mashed potatoes. My relationship with my parents has deepened in unexpected ways. Our conversations are more honest now, less burdened by unspoken resentments. My father calls the twins directly on FaceTime to chat about their day. My mother has started a special project with Lily, teaching her to sew, something she's never done with any of the other grandchildren. I realize now that I was always drawn to the squeaky wheels, my mother admitted to me recently. It was easier to respond to the loud demands than to notice the quiet waiting. But I'm learning that the quiet ones often have the most interesting things to say, if you give them the chance to say it. Amanda and I are still working on our relationship. There are good days and difficult ones. She struggles sometimes with what she perceives as her children getting less attention, not quite understanding that equalizing doesn't mean taking away, means bringing others up to the same level. But there have been moments of progress. Last week, she surprised me by suggesting that Riley might want to join Zoe at her advanced art class on Saturdays. The instructor mentioned they're looking for more students, and I remembered how much Riley loves drawing, she said casually, as if this thoughtful consideration of my daughter's interests wasn't a significant departure from her usual self-focus. The cousins' relationships have evolved too. Without the constant undercurrent of favoritism creating resentment and competition, they've discovered genuine connections with each other. Ethan has found a patient gaming partner in Riley, who doesn't mind explaining rules multiple times. Lily and Max have bonded over a shared love of building elaborate structures out of anything they can find. Even teenage Zoe has started to appreciate her quieter cousins, especially when she needs a break from the drama of middle school social politics. We've established new family traditions that ensure everyone feels included. The talking stick at dinner has evolved into 3 good things, where each person shares 3 positive moments from their week. We rotate who goes first. We have a family book club where everyone, adults and children alike, reads the same book and discusses it, an activity that plays to the twins' strengths while encouraging Amanda's more action-oriented children to develop their reflective side. For the grandchildren's birthdays, we've instituted a new gift policy, one wanted item of similar value for each child, plus a special experience to share with the grandparents. This has eliminated the obvious disparities that used to occur and shifted the focus from material gifts to quality time. None of this has been easy. There have been setbacks, hurt feelings, old patterns reasserting themselves when we're tired or stressed. Amanda still occasionally makes cutting remarks about me playing the victim or being oversensitive. My father sometimes slips back into focusing all his attention on Ethan's sports achievements. My mother still tends to fuss more over Max than the other children. But the difference now is that these behaviors get noticed and addressed, not ignored and allowed to fester. We're all more aware of the family dynamics we've created and the impact they have, especially on the children who are still forming their sense of self-worth and belonging. As for me, I've found my voice in ways I never expected. Standing up for my daughters taught me to stand up for myself as well. I'm less willing to be the family peacekeeper at the expense of my own needs. I've become more direct about my feelings, more confident in setting boundaries. It's been liberating, if occasionally uncomfortable. The twins and I still have our special rituals, just the three of us. Sunday night movie nights with homemade pizza. Wednesday afternoon walks in the park. Morning dance parties in the kitchen while making breakfast. These moments remind us that while extended family relationships are important, our little trio is the foundation, the place where they are always seen, always heard, always valued exactly as they are. Last week, during one of these walks, Lily asked me a question that stopped me in my track. "Mom, why did it take so long for you to say something to Grandma and Grandpa about how they treated us?" I considered deflecting but decided my daughters deserved honesty. "I think I was afraid," I admitted, afraid of causing conflict, of being labeled difficult or oversensitive, afraid of damaging your relationship with your grandparents. And maybe a little afraid of acknowledging that the way they sometimes treated you was the same way they sometimes treated me growing up. Riley took my hand, "But you did say something eventually." "Yes, because watching you two feel invisible was worse than any fear I had about speaking up." "I'm glad you did," Lily said simply. "It feels better now, not perfect but better." "That's often how change works," I told them. "Not in dramatic transformations, but in small steps forward, with occasional steps back. The important thing is to keep moving in the right direction." As we walked home, hand in hand, I reflected on how much had changed since that fateful takeout incident. A simple question, "What would you like to eat?" had been the catalyst for transforming our entire family dynamic. It wasn't just about food preferences. It was about acknowledging that everyone at the table deserved to be asked, to be heard, to be considered. The lesson for my daughters is powerful. Your voice matters. Your needs matter. You deserve to take up space in this world. And sometimes, standing up for yourself means standing up to the people you love most. The lesson for me has been equally profound. Sometimes the most loving thing you can do for your family is to challenge the patterns that aren't serving them well. Real love isn't about maintaining a peaceful surface at all costs, it's about doing the difficult, uncomfortable work of creating genuine connection and mutual respect. We're still learning, still growing, still figuring out how to be the family we want to be, but we're doing it together now, with more awareness and intention than before. And that makes all the difference. Have you ever had to stand up for yourself or your children in your family? How did you handle it, and what was the outcome? I'd love to hear your experiences in the comments below. Don't forget to like this video if it resonated with you, subscribe to hear more family stories, and share with anyone who might need to be reminded that they deserve to be seen and heard. Thank you for listening to our story, and remember, sometimes the smallest moments can lead to the biggest changes.